Michael Fanone, welcome back to Mea Culpa. Great to have you on. So much going on, so much to talk to you about. The hour, unfortunately, goes by way too quick, so I'm going to just jump right into it. So, Michael, let me start with what happened just the other day. Spring Grove, Pennsylvania. 3 officers killed, 2 additional people wounded. What was your first reaction when you heard that news?
Policing is an incredibly dangerous job. I think that as much attention has been brought to policing in this country, especially under this administration with the weaponization of law enforcement, we forget that there are a lot of selfless individuals who take the oath and who are out there on the streets every single day trying to keep us safe. And I feel for their families. I've eulogized officers that died in the line of duty, and I know how heartbreaking that can be for their families and their colleagues.
I mean, this to me was yet again a senseless act. They went, I believe, to serve a warrant, and the guy was waiting sort of in a cornfield for them, and then ended up opening fire again, taking the lives of 3 additional officers. My understanding, and I know I read it somewhere, more than 300 officers killed this year alone in the line of duty.
Yeah, I mean, again, it speaks to the dangerousness of the job and the type of individual that's attracted to that work. That would be willing to risk his or her life to keep their community safe. It's senseless. It's unfortunate, but also, we have an issue in this country with gun violence. It's not always just innocent school children that are the victims. Law enforcement officers also pay a heavy price for too many guns on the streets in the hands of too many criminals.
Yeah, amen to that one. So, Mike, look, having lived through violence in the line of duty yourself, can you walk us through what that does to the morale of officers across the country? Because this is not just isolated now emotionally to Spring Grove, to Pennsylvania. This is all across the country.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just speak from experience. I mean, and the instances that I witnessed, in I remember there was a Corporal Goggins, who was a police officer in Prince George's County that I knew, and he was shot and killed pursuing a suspect from a carjacking. And I mean, it had a devastating effect on, not only his department, but all the surrounding agencies. It's terrifying. It's frustrating that, it seems like, regardless of who is the victim, whether it's police officers who are, selflessly patrolling their communities and trying to keep them safe, or whether it's school children, there's just a, inability to act in a meaningful way to address these issues.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. Do you think that, or do you believe that we're seeing a trend where law enforcement itself is becoming the target in America's political and cultural wars? Because when you have, for example, the National Guard federalized and sent to the streets, for example, of Los Angeles, or what was supposed to be Chicago, and now it's going to be Memphis or wherever else or Washington, D.C. for that matter. Do you believe that this is causing police officers to become targets?
I do. And, I remember vividly what it was like to be a police officer, in 2015 through 2020 during the Black Lives Matter movement. And obviously this country was in an uproar over a lot of polarizing incidents involving law enforcement and communities of color. I think that, while it's important to focus on those aspects of the moment, it's also important to focus on the reaction. We had law enforcement officers who were assassinated for simply putting on a uniform and getting into a car. I mean, I went to the funerals of Wenjin Liu and Rafael Ramos in New York City. I'm sure you remember.
I remember it very vividly.
All they were doing was working some overtime, sitting in a marked car, and an individual walked up and killed them. And that occurred all over the country. I mean, you had the Dallas Five, the 5 officers in Dallas that were actually working a Black Lives Matter rally or march, and they were shot and killed. You had Louisiana on a traffic stop, an officer there that was shot and killed. I mean, it was an epidemic that was happening at that time. And I remember having conversation after conversation about how, we hate as law enforcement officers being politicized. We hate it and obviously it was at that time, it was left-leaning politicians that were weighing into this conversation. And I think in a lot of cases, they created this environment in which people believed, and there were other actors in that as well, but they created an environment in which people believed that communities of color were under attack by law enforcement. And yes, there were egregious acts, and there is a history there that has yet to be addressed, in which law enforcement has played a role in oppressing some of these communities, many of these communities. But I didn't think that the way the conversation was being handled by our political leaders was benefiting anyone. Fast forward now to 2025, and you see the reverse effect. You have a political, an administration that is telling cops to go out there and do whatever the hell you want to do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of cops that were around during the BLM protests that felt demonized, dehumanized, and humiliated, that are embracing this opportunity to get revenge on the communities that they feel have, taken them for granted. And so, my argument to these guys is, you didn't like being politicized then. Why are you embracing being politicized now? Because it's so obvious that this administration doesn't actually care about cops. They're not doing anything meaningful to bolster law enforcement's capabilities. In fact, most of the funding bills, they've cut funding from law enforcement programs for training, et cetera, et cetera. And so all of this, is performative in the way that Trump embraces law enforcement. But it appeals to a lot of police officers, and the long-term effects of that are going to be, you're going to see officers go out like we have, like ICE agents and even some local police departments, and have been heavy-handed with the communities. And now, and when all of this is done, when the Trump administration is gone, those communities, that trust that they've broken, will still exist, and people will remember. Just like people remember law enforcement's role in 1930s Germany and the things that they did to Jewish residents in seizing property, in going in and arresting people for simply being Jewish. I mean, you're seeing a lot of similarities there to the way that law enforcement officers are behaving now, at the direction of this administration, whether it's going in and arresting people for just being, of a certain ethnic persuasion. And you can't even make the argument anymore that it has to do with their legal residency, because we've seen now countless scenarios in which legal residents, even U.S. citizens, have been detained, some for multiple days and weeks. And then you've also seen, American citizens targeted with other agencies. I mean, nobody could speak to it better, I think, than you in being, imprisoned or being investigated, and understanding what the impact of that is, the cost of that is. It's devastating to the average American. I mean, we're talking about going up against the federal government that's now been weaponized against Trump's opponents.
Yeah, I mean, there is no beating the federal government. I don't give a shit if you're Michael Fanone, Michael Cohen, or Elon Musk. I don't care whether you have. It makes no difference. You could be, you could have no money, or you could be the richest guy in the world. It doesn't matter. You're never richer than the United States government, and you're never more powerful than the president. Plain and simple. Hey, let me ask you this question because it sort of touches on this. So then, to what extent do you think that political rhetoric, especially from our leaders, is fueling this environment where violence against officers becomes normalized? You see, I was under the impression, at least if you listen to this administration, that they are back the blue. And when I hear police officers turn around and tell me that they are pro-Trump because he backs the blue and they are police officers, I often want to say to him, or ask them the question that I'm asking you. There is so much negative political rhetoric. When you turn around and you tell an ICE agent, if you're 18 years old with 6 weeks training and a $50,000 bonus, we'll give you a shield and an AR-15, and we'll tell you to go into a community and go round up a bunch of people like this is, they're playing that fucking game Fortnite. They come in there. I mean, these kids they're not old enough to buy a pack of cigarettes. They can't go into the 7-Eleven or the Wawa, and they can't go buy a fucking beer. But yet, you're willing to give them 50 grand. You're willing to give them an AR. You're willing to give them a shield with basically no training at all. Specifically, no CPOP training, right? Community police on patrol. None of that. Go in and go find the bad guys. Go find the undocumented migrants.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, listen, I understand. Believe me, I understand people's anger and the reaction that they're having to, agencies coming into their neighborhoods and policing them in the manner that they have been. And usually when I have this conversation, Mike, I try to separate ICE as an agency because, as a law enforcement officer, somebody who worked for 20 years in the District of Columbia, like I understand, optically, like using force is never going to be optically, pleasing. It's ugly, but it is justified in many cases. The things that I've seen ICE agents do are so far outside of the realm of normal. And the most troubling to me are the verbal engagements with members of the community who are filming them, documenting them. And even if they're taunting them, I mean, listen, I don't advocate for that. But I certainly advocate for people going out and documenting these things because unfortunately the mainstream media is not covering it. And it's the only way that we're able to, as Americans, see what's actually happening on the ground. That being said, your average police officer, I mean, take for instance, in Washington, D.C., you've got D.C. police officers now who are accompanying ICE agents. I mean, they're given a job. They're given a task. They're told what they need to do. I don't hold those, individual officers accountable for going out there and following, their orders when it comes to, following ICE agents around. I hold their leadership accountable. We have had a longstanding policy in Washington, D.C. that the Metropolitan Police Department does not cooperate with ICE on ICE operations. And the reason behind that is because we have to police the entire city of Washington, D.C., just like NYPD has to police the entire city of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are migrant communities in our city in which there are undocumented residents, but they are still entitled to be safe and secure. And if they are the victims of a crime, they're entitled to police services. I mean, that's the humane.
Not according to the current administration, to the DOJ, certainly not to Tom Homan, the director of the Homeland Security. Absolutely not. That they are entitled to nothing. They're not entitled to, in his estimation, due process. They're here illegally, and any way that you need to round them up and ship them out works for him.
Yeah, I just, obviously, like you, I disagree with that.
Yeah.
But I'm shocked. Like so many other things. I mean, there's so much that's happened in the past 24 hours, and I'm glad I'm glad we made plans to come on today, because like I'm a little distraught, Mike, in like where is the reaction? Like, where is America's visceral reaction to what's happening in this moment? Because to me, it's just one insane
event after another. Well, let me just sort of give you the answer, right? Because it's normally me asking you questions, but I love that as a question. Where is America's visceral reaction? They're numb. They're tired. The daily chaos is causing nothing but apathy. And I believe that that's part of the game. That I can't do anything to make a change, or at least a positive change. It's like when you and I go on a Substack together, when we'll bring up Lev, and he's constantly talking about how we have to continue to fight every single day. It is fucking exhausting. Emotionally, physically, mentally. It is exhausting writing the Substacks, going live, engaging with our communities. Why? Because the attempt is to grow them to so big. It's like my Mea Culpa podcast. We're doing over 300,000 listens and views on every single episode. So a lot of people are going to have the opportunity to see you, to hear you, to see me and to hear me when we're talking about this apathy and the danger that apathy will cause to America's democratic republic in not just tomorrow, but in future generations to come. And we're seeing that every single day. And it's why so many people will turn around and say to you, I saw in the comments on our Substack, thank you, Michael Fanone, for everything that you're doing. I get the occasional thank yous as well, as does Lev. But they thank you for fighting the fight. Because as soon as you go silent, they go silent. And if they go silent, they don't come back.
Yeah.
And that's the danger. So, hey, let me shift to a different topic here, because the FBI and the DOJ, they're literally now talking about prosecuting hate speech. Now, you've seen firsthand the power of violent rhetoric. January 6th, obviously. Where do you draw the line between dangerous incitement and protected speech? This is a big topic.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's, my understanding is, and I'm not a constitutional, lawyer, or, but hate speech in this country is for better or for worse, is protected speech. Where you draw the line is when that language is, can be deemed insightful. And I mean, it is a gray area. But I mean, I always point to me as a street cop, what was literally the most obvious, insightful rhetoric, violent rhetoric, was on January 6th, 2021, when Donald Trump told us that we were going to have to fight like hell or we weren't going to have a country anymore. And then, said that he was going to join his supporters and march, the 15 blocks from the ellipse to the United States Capitol. Obviously, his time didn't permit him participating in that event directly, but his supporters, 15,000 of them, stormed the Capitol and beat the shit out of police officers. I couldn't imagine an easier connect the dots than that. But for some reason, that was never prosecuted.
Well, it was prosecuted, and over 1,500 of them were incarcerated, held criminally liable, and then come January of 2025, with the stroke of a Sharpie, they are all given presidential pardons. Every single one of them, basically making it acceptable, normalized to commit violence against a police officer.
Yeah, I mean, they used to say, if you're willing to commit an act of violence against a police officer, then that places you in a specific category of criminals that is not the average criminal. And so, again, I've said it many times. No American politician has done more to advocate for or to contribute to the normalization of political violence than Donald Trump, and many of his enablers. Stephen Miller comes to mind.
If you value choice in your money, your goals in your future, you know exactly how frustrating traditional healthcare can be. One-size-fits-all treatments, preset dosages, zero flexibility. I mean, it's like trying to do your taxes with Monopoly money. It's ridiculous. But now there's another way, with Hims and Hers. I mean, these guys actually get it. Weight loss, hair loss, sexual health, mental health. They've got personalized care for all of it. Because your biology, your lifestyle, and your goals, totally unique. You're not average, and your healthcare shouldn't be either. There's no membership fees, no surprise charges, no sitting in a waiting room staring at outdated magazines while pretending to be interested in a fish on the wall. Just transparent pricing, real care, and the convenience of taking care of yourself online while wearing sweatpants, drinking coffee, or hell, plotting your next career move. So do this for yourself. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Cohen. That's HIMS.com/Cohen to find your personalized treatment options. Yeah, some products need a provider consultation and it's not available everywhere. But compared to old school healthcare, this feels like upgrading from a flip phone to a smartphone. Fast, easy, and maybe even a little fun.
Certainly Donald Trump in, advocating for political violence and then going a step further and pardoning those who actually committed acts of violence at his direction and on his behalf, I think sent a clear message to his supporters that, if you commit crimes on my behalf, that I'll absolve you of all criminal culpability. And now we're seeing, the reverse is if you are someone who speaks out against my administration or even surrogates of my administration, we're gonna come after you for hate speech or and I don't know if that stands, but that's not even the point. First of all, I don't have a whole lot of faith in this Supreme Court, which inevitably I would imagine it would make its way there. But in the meantime, if you're being investigated for hate speech, you've now gone broke like 10 times over, trying to make your way through the criminal justice system and all the levels of the appellate courts. The average American cannot afford that.
No.
And so, I think that really is, that's the rub. That's where, this administration sees that it could be most successful in silencing people, silencing their dissent, is because they're fearful of, being sued into oblivion.
Yeah. I have a follow-up. And the follow-up is, and this is something that I just can't wrap my hands around. How do you even prepare law enforcement to be equipped to fairly define and enforce laws on hate speech without opening the door to abuse? Because as a lawyer, as somebody who was trained in critical thinking, I don't even know, sitting here today, how to define hate speech the way this administration is discussing it. Is hate speech turning around and saying, I don't like your haircut? Is it turning around and saying something negative, derogatory to a race, religion, a creed, a color, a sexual orientation, a political affiliation? Where's the line drawn in the sand? Or is that line drawn ad hoc by Donald Trump himself and his people?
Oh, I think that's an easy one, Mike. The standard is going to be set by this administration, and I hate speculating on things, but I'm willing to go out on a limb here and put money on, if anybody is charged during Trump's administration for hate speech related crimes, that it's going to be somebody who is in opposition to Donald Trump. It's certainly not going to be a Trump supporter that uses, some type of hateful, insightful rhetoric, at someone on the left. I mean, shit, Mike, what have we heard out of Donald Trump and every, MAGA extremist politician over the past, week since Charlie Kirk was assassinated? All I've heard is violent, insightful, dehumanizing language out of, Trump, his surrogates, several of these firebrand right-wing members of Congress, to describe people on the left, which in Trump's mind is everyone that doesn't support him. And so, yeah, I think we've been in uncharted waters for a while now, but this is just another tool in the MAGA toolbox to keep people like you and I quiet.
So just imagine, during the campaign, Mea Culpa had a T-shirt, and it was Trump in an orange jumpsuit. It was the Mar-a-Lago Mea Culpa, Federal Correctional Institution. And it's the back of Donald Trump. You could tell it's him, again, in a jumpsuit, an orange jumpsuit, locked up. I could see somebody walking there, because we sold thousands of those, tens of thousands of those T-shirts. Somebody walking on the street, and next thing you know, 10 guys jump out of a Sprinter, right? Face covered, helmet, tactical gloves, AR strapped across the chest from their Kevlar vest, and so on. And they jump the person. Male, female, old, young, doesn't make a difference. We sold them to everybody, right? We determined that that's hate speech. That's the fear that I have, that you could be walking down the street and not even know that what you're wearing, that what you're saying is considered hate speech under this newly undefined law that doesn't exist on the books, but it exists in the MAGA sphere because that's where the administration has put it. That, to me, is a pretty serious danger.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, when you talk about hate speech and trying to criminalize certain types of speech, I always look to the United Kingdom, where they actually have laws on the books that prevent people from using certain type of speech that they've deemed to be, if it's supportive of an organization that they deem to be a bad organization, that can be a form of hate speech. And I get it was well intentioned, I think, when they brought those laws about, but all I have seen is absolute and utter chaos and abuse, in a lot of cases stemming from those laws. That's with the best intentions at heart. Imagine what that would look like. What we're describing now is an administration that has the worst intentions. Like you said, I think that the T-shirt thing is a great example, because even if you don't ever get prosecuted for creating the T-shirt, when the administration, when some agency comes in, seizes your entire inventory, if you're a screen printing shop, takes all of your equipment away, now you're out of business. You've lost, tens of thousands of dollars, potentially more, and you're broke. And that to me that's what I think we're going to start seeing before we start seeing actual criminal prosecutions. I think we're just going to see people and then they could say, well, your proceeds are the proceeds of a crime. And we have incredibly loose. I mean, I can speak to this, like our asset forfeiture laws in this country are, pretty ambiguous. And so now you're making T-shirts that are hate speech. You're under a criminal investigation. We're going to seize everything, and we're going to seize all your money because that's suspected proceeds of a crime. And now you can't even defend yourself. Yeah. So
right, you're going to have to rely upon government-assisted counsel. Right. Hey, let me pivot again for a quick second, because we recently just seen Disney and ABC canceling Jimmy Kimmel under White House and FCC pressure. Now, mind you, this is not the first time that ABC has capitulated to this administration. This is now the second. Remember, a couple months back, Trump was angry that George Stephanopoulos asked a certain type of question in a certain way, and then he sued ABC, Disney. They were in the process of going through something, and so they end up settling for $16 million. Now, there was a time that
I know that, Mike, because Trump has said it now like 200 times in the past 24 hours.
Well, that's designed to remind people, fuck with me and find out, right? Yeah. Fuck around, find out, FAFO.
Yeah.
So here's the crazy thing. There was a time that 16 million people would be like, holy shit, that's a fucking ton of money. Not when you're talking about the billions and trillions now that you hear every single day. It's still, to America, the richest country in the world, $16 million is a lot of money in an individual's bank account. Now, ABC, Disney decided to do this because they didn't want to continue fighting with Trump and this administration, so they bent the knee. Well, now he's unhappy, and he said that he was going to do this during the campaign. After, when he first won, that first he was going to go after Colbert and then Kimmel and then others. He's now talking about going after New York Attorney General Tish James. He's going to go after Jack Smith. He's going to go after Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, James Comey. He's going to go after them all. And I'm going to make a prediction right here on Mea Culpa. And I'll just talk about, for example, whether it's Tish James, Alvin Bragg, James Comey, whether it's going to be Jack Smith. I think they're all fucked. And when I mean, I'm talking about loss of their law licenses, incarceration. I think he's got Adam Schiff is going to find himself on the wrong side of a massive fight with Trump, because this administration, the DOJ, the FBI, the IRS, they have unlimited resources, unlimited manpower, and unlimited time within which to find anything. And there was a book I remember reading when I was in Otisville. It was by Harvey Westglate, and I think also Sidney Powell contributed to it, called 5 Felonies a Day, that everybody commits a felony, maybe 5 a day, when you don't even realize it. But each one of those can be prosecuted. Well, mark my word, Tish James, Bragg, Comey, Jack Smith, all of them, they're going to understand just how easy it is to indict a ham sandwich. But the question I want to ask you about Disney and ABC canceling Jimmy Kimmel, I want to ask you your reaction to corporations, not even government now, corporations silencing voices to protect their bottom line, which is what ABC Disney just did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a new phenomenon in this country. I think that we have a long and storied history of, wealthy corporations, millionaires and billionaires who have placed, their own interests above the American people. I mean, that's just something that you almost come to expect. I mean, it doesn't negate the fact that it's disgusting, because, now they're, by capitulating, they're giving away my freedom and they're giving away your freedom. And I think that, I think that this is strategic. I think that Donald Trump has had a long-standing beef with a lot of people, but some of the most prominent, I think, is late night talk show, comedy hosts, and you see now that these companies, like you said, are looking to merge or acquire one another. Mm-hmm. And they seek the approval of the White House, which is required. And Trump now has this leverage and can kind of wait and lay in wait for somebody to do something or say something that he can then twist as justification for getting them fired. I mean, I watched the comments that Jimmy Kimmel made, and I was shocked that these organizations would allow for that to be a justification for getting him kicked off. But then again, I'm not. It's
by the way, it's not what he said. See, that's the crazy thing. They're all standing behind that bullshit line that, it just, the show wasn't doing well, ratings weren't well, the profitability didn't make sense for them to keep going. That's what, that's their line of bullshit. But I want to stand with something that you said a moment ago, that what he said, while it may have been ill-timed, it was snarky, for sure. The comment about, it's like what a kid would say after he loses his goldfish, not a close personal friend. It drew laughs, certainly from the crowd. Maybe it was somewhat cruel to the family, for sure, to those people who cared about Charlie Kirk as something more than just another human being, right? I do truly believe that they did it because they need FCC approval. Nexstar and Disney, they need some sort of FCC approval, and they were bending the knee because they know that if they didn't do this, then guaranteed whatever merger or acquisition that they're working on would never happen.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's pretty obvious that that's the case. I mean, again, like I just, it just further erodes my, if there's anything left of my, the idea that America is this, courageous country filled with freedom fighters.
Yeah.
It's, it's sad. And, a lot of these things are going to be irreversible. Once you lose rights, it's pretty hard to get them back.
It takes generations. I say that all the time about Roe versus Wade. I say that about what they're doing next, Obergefell. I say that about Blassingame. These are all very significant 5-decade-old cases. One, obviously, everyone knows Roe versus Wade, which is, your right to choose. But then there's the Obergefell case, which is same-sex marriage.
Marriage.
All right, they're going to turn it over to states. There will be states that you cannot marry somebody of your own sexual persuasion. And, and then you also have Blassingame, which is interracial marriage. I mean, we're really getting into full-blown authoritarianism. But I do also want to ask you, because you've seen so much, right? And you've risked so much. You risked your career when you were speaking out against January 6th. And I really want to ask you, how did it hit you personally when you start to see these networks folding under political pressure? Because you didn't do that. You didn't fold under political pressure. What you did is you stood up for free expression, for the First Amendment, for the Constitution.
I mean, it pisses me off. I again, like I go back to, standing shoulder to shoulder with like 40 other police officers on January 6th inside of this tunnel that's filled with CS gas and chemical irritants. And, I'm being beaten and struck with a taser. And I did that, like I volunteered for that. I went there of my own volition. I self-dispatched like so many other police officers did that day. And I'm unapologetically expect every American to be willing to ante up and kick in at least what I was, to fight back against this administration. And when you see somebody kowtow and cower for money, of all things, it's particularly disgusting. Especially when, people like me, people like you, Michael, have sacrificed our livelihoods, have lost our livelihoods in many cases, fighting this fight. And I mean, it's, indifference is going to be, the downfall of our democracy. And it's unfortunate that I'm quite certain that a lot of those people that work at those networks probably, I've done interviews at NBC and ABC and CBS and fucking all these different organizations. And that, their executives have come to me and told me I was a hero and thank you and, God bless you. But then they do this.
Mm-hmm. It's got to really piss you off. We've all set health goals: lose weight, exercise more, eat better. But let's be honest, without a plan, they usually fade faster than a politician's promise. And that's where Prolon comes in. Their 5-day fasting mimicking diet, it gives you a science-backed, structured approach to actually see results. And yes, real results without needles, without starving yourself, and without giving up food that you actually like. Long work weeks, nonstop travel, deadlines that feel like interrogations, I get depleted. In just 5 days, it works at the cellular level to rejuvenate you from the inside out. Fast focus, sustainable weight loss? Check. Lean muscle protected? Check that too. Energy boosted? Absolutely. And the meals? soups, snacks, beverages, all prepackaged, ready to go. And here's something important, 100% organic. You even get 5 labeled boxes, one for each day, so there's no guesswork, no cheating, no excuses. This isn't a gimmick. It's decades of research at USC's Longevity Institute, backed by top US medical centers. It triggers autophagy, a Nobel Prize winning cellular repair process that literally cleans up your damaged cells. I mean, think of it as a cellular spring cleaning without having to hire Marie Kondo. Now, no matter the season, when I'm craving the real reset, Prolon is the only nutrition program that works for me. It's convenient, science-backed, and most importantly, it works. So right now, listeners get 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to the 5-day program. So go right now to prolonlife.com/mea culpa. That's Prolon Life, PROLONLIFE.com/mea culpa to claim your discount and your bonus gift. And trust me, 5 days, you'll feel like a completely new version of yourself. Even I didn't see this coming, and I've seen a lot. Hey, can I go back to the whole threatening against justice officials and so on? Because, again, as I was saying a moment ago, it's not as if Trump is not openly stating certain things. It's not just Trump. It's his attorney general. It's the director of the FBI, Kash Patel. It's his number 2 at DOJ, Todd Blanche. It's all of his talking heads, all of his sycophants, his enablers, his mouthpieces going out there and saying, Trump is going to prosecute. He is going to use the full force of this country to prosecute people like Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Jack Smith, Fonnie Willis, judges that held him accountable, etc. As a guy who spent his life in law enforcement, how dangerous is this? I mean, I don't know how to quantify it.
I mean, there's nothing more dangerous than that, especially if you stand in opposition again to this administration. I mean, it's more than just the surrogates, Mike. It's more than just the talking heads. You have the head of the FBI, Kash Patel. You have the head of the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, saying that we exist to further this administration's goals. We exist to do the bidding, and I'm paraphrasing here, of Donald Trump and this administration. And they put it very poignantly. I mean, they don't shy away from that. And this is the first time ever in our history that we have had leaders of these institutions, these agencies, who are openly expressing their willingness to act on behalf of the president of the United States rather than act in the interest of the American people and in accordance with the Constitution. And then we've seen that occur time and time again where, Trump's DOJ and Trump's FBI have overstepped the line when it came to, the constitutionality of their actions, and then there have been pushback from the courts. I mean, so much so that you've had federal court judges say that the FBI and the Department of Justice, prosecuting attorneys as a whole, not as individuals, no longer have any credibility. Yep. That to me is the most damning statement that you could possibly convey to the American people, that, these judges have no faith that agents or attorneys of these agencies are going to tell them the truth and that they're going to act in accordance with the law. I mean,
I think it gets into a little bit even more. I mean, I don't want to scare the shit out of our listeners and, and to the country, but tough shit, because sometimes the truth hurts. When you have the president himself turning around and making claims, and along with, as you said, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, and a myriad of other people, the head of the IRS, etc., that they're going to basically hunt down prosecutors and judges and individuals, describing them as enemies. And then we look back to see this whole issue that they're bringing up now of hate speech, which they'd say is not free speech. There's going to be a plethora of ways that they are going to be able to go after these individuals. And the scary part is that they're just the beginning. They can go then after anyone. They can go after prosecutors. They can go after attorney generals, DAs, judges. They can go after journalists, newscasters. They can go after civilians. They can go after any person that they deem to be guilty of hate speech.
Yeah, I mean, they're already, going after these. I mean, the hate speech thing is something that just recently come about, but I mean, they're already going after these institutions and these organizations because we've been experiencing capitulation on their behalf, specifically the news media with legacy media companies and their inability to hold administration officials accountable for their constant barrage of misleading information or just out and out lies. They don't even try to call out insightful rhetoric or their own, actual hate speech. I was at the Capitol the other day with our buddy Don Lemon, and there was a scrum of reporters, and they were interviewing Nancy Mace, and Nancy Mace first made a bunch of false statements about who is, in this country is most responsible for committing acts of political violence. All of the data shows that the majority of, violent acts that are classified as political violence are committed by right-wing extremists. And she was saying the reverse. Nobody except for Don was willing to challenge her on that. And then she went off into a tirade using transphobic language, really some vile and visceral things, things to they're violent, deranged individuals that need to be in a straitjacket with a steel padlock, which all of that is, obviously insightful language. She was saying it in reference to the shooting of Charlie Kirk, which we now know that the shooter himself was not actually a transgendered person, but she still took the opportunity to say that. And there was no pushback, Mike, none.
Well, when she said it, by the way, they hadn't but when she said it, they hadn't even caught the shooter at that point. They have no idea about motive. They have no idea who the person was.
This was after they had caught the shooter. This is after
she still continued with it.
She still continued to use that. And, you have all of these network, major network journalists there, and no one, they just gave her the mic.
Yeah. Truly, they're just pathetic. But I do want to ask you, because you brought this up, by the way, as well, about the UK, how they have different laws and so on. I want to talk about Trump's visit to the UK. Public's reaction there was clear. It was crystal clear that he's not welcome there. What did you make of that?
As somebody who's recently done a little bit of traveling abroad, it didn't surprise me at all. I actually do a lot of EU, European Union media, different countries, and the vast majority, while they're all experiencing right-wing extremist movements in their own countries that are kind of mirroring this administration, the vast majority of people are disgusted with Donald Trump, despise Donald Trump, not only as a person, but also, the movement that he's come to represent. And I think to their benefit, they are not so far removed from a real fascist threat and a real fascist experience. And so they really see what this is with a great deal of clarity. Whereas, the average American, I think, is we're victims of our own success, and that we made it this far without without having experienced something like that directly, within the borders of our own country. Now we are, and people are just too comfortable to stand up to it.
Yeah. So, Mike, look, like I said, the hour goes by. I got about 50 more questions to ask you. I'm going to ask you one final one.
Do like a rapid fire.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to ask you one final one. Do you think that the global rejection of Trump matters to his base here in America? Or do you think it only hardens their loyalty to him?
I think it hardens their loyalty to him. I think that, listen, like a lot of the problem with Trump's base is just a lack of resources to travel outside of their communities. The vast majority of people that I know that are diehard MAGA are people that have, never traveled outside of their, state, let alone their county. And so, when you have that limited perspective, that limited view, it's very easy to be sold a bill of goods like they have been by Donald Trump. And, having had the benefit of traveling, all over the world, like I recognize like how small, we really are, and how intertwined these communities are. And I think that Trump's base really buys into the America First ideology. That being said, I think that we're 9 months into it, and we're experiencing the adverse effects of what that actually looks like, whether it's through the tariffs or just, and I'm not a geopolitical guy, but I understand relationships. That's pretty simple. And, we've been this beacon of democracy to so many different countries, and we have, we've destroyed that trust. And it goes deeper than just an administration. When I talk to people from other countries, they tell me, it's not just about Donald Trump and MAGA and the Trump administration. It's the fact that the American people voted for this, knowing full well that this is what they were going to get. And in doing so, they betrayed these friendships and these allies. And so, they're going to be thinking going forward, whoever ends up being the next president, say we right the ship in 2028. I still think there's going to be a reluctance on the part of these countries, to fully invest again in these relationships, if they haven't already invested fully in some other relationship, whether it's China, whether it's Russia. Things that we're seeing now, because they simply can't depend on the United States for any type of stability. And then where are we at, in the long run?
Well, where we are is last in line. Michael Fanone, thank you, my brother. Good to see you again. We'll have to continue with our Substacks and keep pushing. Keep pushing, keep speaking out, keep being you, because you are an American hero.
Likewise, and we're not going anywhere. And I'm going to text you some dates for those Yankee games.
Dude, I love it. Thank you, my brother.
All right, buddy. I'll see you.